In this Creator Series interview, I am talking to a man who creates, records, releases, mixes, does all the things with his music. In fact, we've got something very exciting to tell you about what's happening over on his channel. He is YouTuber, music creator extraordinaire, Mike from Creative Source. How are you doing, Mike? It has been a while.
It has been a while, Mr. Pete Johns. How are you?
I'm
You're
good.
looking spiffing.
I'm looking spiffing. You like my shiny spot on the head
I
there? Yeah.
like you. Look a little orange compared to me, or do I look a little jaundiced compared to you? I'm not really sure, but anyway, you
You,
look splendid. I'm looking the wrong way. See, when I look at you, I'm going to look at you over there. There you go,
yeah,
Pete.
there you go. Oh, do I have to look over there too? Is this going to get
Yes.
really weird that we're going to look
Yes.
sideways? Yeah.
Every day you look more like a baby with a beard.
Oh, and we're off to a flag here. If you don't know, Mike Mike and I did a show last year, and we've done plenty of live streams together. But this is my opportunity to actually get some revenge. I mean, to interview Mike and find out a little bit about what is going on. Learn more about his. Actually, no, don't worry. He's not going to make it through the interview, so all of
No,
this
I'm
might
not
be
possibly going to die.
So this is our Creator Series interview, though, and we have to be very serious in these interviews because I ask a lot of hard-hitting questions. And what I usually start with is this question. I like to know about people's musical origin story, and I actually don't even really know yours. And we've known each other for a long time, so I'm going to throw this out to you and say, what on earth got you into this music caper in the first place? Why do you create music, Mike?
So I was actually telling my kids this story a couple of days ago, and we were camping. And it's not always that interesting, but some people might identify. So I was actually born in Australia, and I grew up in a suburb. Lived in a suburb called Yokai, and the local primary school was called Chewett Hill Primary School. And back in those days, it would have been about 1975, 74, 75. The kid who sang best during assembly got to ring the bell for, break time. It was a big brass bell. Yeah. Big brass bell with a wooden handle. And as a kid, I thought this would be awesome. I get to run around and bang, bang, bang. That was what I was interested in. And I happened to sing. I sort of sang my little heart out in primary school assembly in the morning, and I got picked. And I was singing a song about South Australia. In fact, where you're from? Yes, that's about some pickaninnies. I don't know if you know the song. I'm not going to sing it because of copyright reasons.
Right.
But so it was a little folk song about a lake in South Australia. And I was chosen, and I was dead thrilled. And I went home to my mum and dad. I said, like kids do. I was happy that I got a good result. I said, I was picked as the best singer today. And Mum said, "Oh, what did you sing?" And I said, "I sang this song." And so then every time there was relatives around, or when we went, traveling to visit different friends and what have you, I was dragged out and I had to sing this song in front of everyone because my mum was dead proud of me. And I think it just felt good. I think it just felt good to kind of sing in front of people and be loved. Yeah, it's what it really comes down to. Inside all musicians is just a completely insecure, tragic person who needs love. Yeah, that's my story.
Well, that's a great transition into being a YouTuber because that's what we're here to do, isn't it? To be loved and to get the likes. It's all about the likes, isn't it? In the YouTube world. So yeah, you made that transition beautifully from wanting to be liked as a child to be wanting to be liked as a Can I call you an elderly man? No, I'll call you a
No, you
middle-aged.
can't.
So for the few people that don't know what it is that you do on YouTube, Mike, you have a channel called Creative Source, and you can, of course, subscribe to said channel down in the description. We would put a link there because that's what we do. There you go. There is your logo. Your is that a bottle half filled or half empty? We'll talk about that later. Why don't you just give folks an overview of what they can expect? Why should they go and subscribe to your channel here on YouTube?
Well, hopefully, I think all of us really, we try and fill in the gaps that we think are there. And there's lots and lots of YouTube creators. And I don't think it's arrogance because there's a lot of people who do it much better than me, particularly on particular subjects. But you sort of look at it and you go, but there's some gaps there. When I watched that video, there was something I didn't quite understand. Now I understand it. I think it could be explained in this way. And that's sort of the approach. I don't really think I'm better than anybody else. I think that it's just a case of you will resonate with some people better than others, you know.
Mm,
And so I think the people that do like my style really, really like it. But I think there's probably lots of people perhaps don't like my style. That's the nature of the beast, and that's absolutely fine. You know, there's lots of room for everyone on YouTube. So
mm,
yeah, that's the approach I kind of look at is now as I'm learning about this
mm.
is more and more what's the most simple way I can explain this so that
Yeah.
someone could understand? Yeah, and that's something I'm really learning. Like 'cause it's an art. So my
It absolutely.
videos in 100 videos time are going to be so much better than the rubbish I'm making now. I can tell you. Just stick around, guys.
Oh, and well, and here I am pumping your tires, saying how good you are. You're creating this great content, but it is, and it is so true, and it's great to hear that, and it's great to see the stuff you're producing, without blowing too much smoke up. Anyway, so what got you into actually recording music in the first place? So we'll talk about some of the exciting things happening on your channel and a particular epic free series that you have coming up. Just to tease
Mhm.
that, we call that a tease in the biz. We'll talk about that in a little while. But what got you into this recording caper in the first place? Like, why do you want to record and
Um,
music?
I think at around about 9 or 10 years old, I used to hang out with some buddies. We were learning to play the guitar together,
Mm,
and we'd actually written some songs at that age. So I got into songwriting very, very early,
right.
and we'd get together on a Saturday at one of my friend's house, and he had a tape recorder, just a cassette recorder, you know. And we would pretend we had a radio show or something, and we kind of
Mm,
interview each other, and then one of us would play a song. And
yeah.
yeah, I think it just starts from that. It's like hearing yourself and then thinking, "Oh, I'd like to make that sound better in
Mm,
some way." And then a little bit after that, when you had like hi-fis with two cassette decks on them, I would
mm,
find a way to sort of record on one and then dub myself in as I played from one to the other. It was awful, but that started the whole process. And then little after that, when I was about 17 or so, I was working in a musical instrument store, and they were
mm,
selling like little Porter Studios, Fostex and
yeah.
Tascam, little Porter Studios, some Yamaha stuff. And we were allowed to take the equipment home so that we could learn on it. So that's what I would do. And I took that stuff home and started on 4 tracks like that, and was always a lover of computers. So I was always into that. So as soon as I was able to start doing it on computers, which was about 1996, I think, I could.
Mm,
Oh, there's a little bit before that with MIDI stuff, you
yeah.
know, but
Yeah.
in terms of recording audio and all that together, was about 96 when I started to do that. So, yeah.
Well, that is very cool, and I enjoy that because I've spoken to a few people lately, and I've been like, "You remember back in the days when you'd get your boom box and you'd plug your microphone in and record?" And they're like,
Yeah.
never seen a cassette in my life. So
Mm,
yeah, it's nice to speak to someone that actually appreciates that the kids
mm.
these days with their mobile phones and their multi-track digital recorders,
Hey.
we were the pioneers. We had 1 track, then 2 tracks, then 4 tracks. Complaining about 32 tracks these days recording on that. Yeah, we need to think about that. So what is it that you actually use to record? So you do a lot of tutorials, and dare I
Mm,
say, I mean, I know you use Persona Studio One, but
mm.
you use Cakewalk a lot these days, and you've been sort of
Yeah.
folks that Cakewalk by BandLab, a free digital audio workstation for PC.
Mm,
What
mm.
got you into that one, and why are you Mr. Cakewalk now?
Yeah, I'd used Cakewalk. I've used at one stage. I had a bit of a 2 year love affair many years ago with Cubase.
Mm,
That was
yep.
okay. Didn't mind that. But at some point, around about 2000 or so, maybe a bit before that, I'd sort of got hold of Cakewalk and I recorded my first album on that.
Mm,
And I don't really know why I got that particular. It might have come with something that I bought. I think something like that. And I got into it. And although over the years it's been looked down upon as a DAW by other more pro ones or what have you,
mm,
I always thought it was a bit weird. I thought, well, but it can do everything that those other ones can do, and it still has that a little bit of slight stigma about it. But however, so I've become quite experienced on it over the years. I
Mm,
stuck with it because I liked it. Um, and then I had moved over to Studio One about 3 or 4 years ago. Um, but after I started the channel, people started to say, "Oh, what could I get which is free?" And then I became aware that Cakewalk had become free.
mm,
And I thought, well, I can recommend this because I knew I used it for a good couple of decades, and it had produced a few albums for me. And and I started to suggest it, and then of course people wanted to know more about it, so I started to make tutorials about it. So I'm sort of mixed at the moment because I'm spending so much time in it that it's become really my main DAW again.
mm,
And here's my stance on it really. If you've got say $300 to $500 to spend, then
mm.
there's this big choice of DAWs, and you should try a few, and you just find out which one works for you. I don't think there's much better than in one or the other. I
Yep.
personally really did have enjoyed Studio One, still have it installed, probably still use it once in a while. However, if you're just starting out and you want to try something and go, oh, I don't know if I'm going to enjoy this or not, I don't want to spend too much money, then Cakewalk's your software, I think, on PC. Of course, if you're on the Mac, you may well, you can't get it on the Mac, so you may well go GarageBand on the Mac.
And
And
I love this because people, one of the most common questions I get is, what is the best free digital audio workstation to use? And I say GarageBand and
mm,
GarageBand for Mac and for iPhone or iPad. But now I say Cakewalk by BandLab, and I send them your
mm,
way to help them learn all the nuances and how to record their stuff in Cakewalk. Is it Cakewalk by
mm.
BandLab or BandLab? I can never remember. Cakewalk by BandLab,
Cakewalk
yeah.
Cakewalk by BandLab, yeah. I mean,
Very
and the thing about it is, I'm just not one of those fanboy types of people.
good.
Whether it's DAW software, whatever works for you. I've got a Mac in the house. I've got some PCs. I've got Android phone. I've got an iPad. So we've got iOS and Android in the house. I've got a Linux server. I mean, it's just whatever's going to work for you.
Exactly. No,
Yeah.
and as you know, as we've discussed in the past, I agree with this. I don't agree with everything you say, but I
Mhm,
definitely agree with that. Is you create with what you have, and then you can build up over time, and you can use
mm,
new things, and you can expand out if you want to. I've got a question here. We got
mm.
thanks so much. We're here live, by the way. We've got Tank on cleaning,
Hey.
Edward Bennett here live, Derek Smith's here live, Jade Star is here live, and
Mm.
Jade likes to ask the curly questions. So she wants to know, if I send you a photo of my studio setup, can you suggest some lighting ideas? I want my studio to look as cool as yours. And if we expand out there, you can
Oh,
see that we've got some very cool lighting there.
mm.
And
There you go.
Mike, you're a bit of the king of the RGB, if I do say so myself. You've always got some
Yeah.
cool lighting going on. Any lighting tips
I
while we're
like it in the mixing phase. I don't like it when I'm actually doing other work. I wouldn't sit here and do word processing with LED lighting on.
no
But it
spreadsheets?
puts me in a good mood during the mixing and the tracking phase, actually. Nah, just jump on eBay and see what you can get for about $15. Get a lot of double-sided tape. It's not complicated. The one that you Jade may have seen on my computer desk is a bit more techy,
Ooh,
because I did actually install that in routing on my desk. This is going a bit sidetracked, isn't it? And it's
no,
operated by Bluetooth on my phone, that one. And
yeah,
then there's some
that
other on my computer, but no.
that's far too cool. And if you don't
Hit
know,
me
Mike,
up, Jade. I'll just give you some tips. I mean, it's
there you go.
not even expensive.
Hit up Mike, ask him all about it. You may not know this, but Mike, unlike myself, if you know me, and if you've been on this channel for a while, you know how devastatingly unhandy I am. Not only can Mike create music, but he's a bit of a handyman around the house as well. And some of your most popular videos are you building a PC and then you building a desk. So your
Yes,
own mixing desk,
yes,
your own studio desk
yes.
there. How did you get so handy, and how can I be more like you?
I don't know, but I will say that if you ask me to cook you a meal, I'm hopeless. I can give you some Vegemite toast. That's about as best as I can do.
Right.
Maybe a roast. Yeah, no, I don't know. Just out of necessity.
Yeah.
I was get the violin out. Poor family. No, not poor family, but working class, just had to learn to do things and become handy. Obviously, you come from a wealthy family, you had servants. and people did
The
everything
the
for you.
butler's looking after the children right now, yeah, actually. Bloody mess.
No, I don't know. I don't know. I like being a bit handy. I'm not that good, really.
Oh, I don't
Muddle my
know.
way, muddle my way through.
I think people should check out your handyman videos, which we will talk. Well, we'll talk more about your videos shortly. But I do ask some other questions here.
Yeah.
We'll nerd out about the
Okay.
actual music side for
Oh,
a moment. Then we'll
this
come
is
back.
getting a bit personal now. Yeah,
Right?
go on.
Exactly. Yeah, no, no. Wait till wait till we get to the end. Or they're the really
Mm.
personal. So what you're using? Cakewalk, using personas, using
Mm.
all these tools. What about from the hardware side of things? What are some of your go-to
Yeah.
gear? You got to talk about gear, right? We've all got gas. We've all
I
got
don't like to talk about my gear too much because I don't want to give people the impression that they need this. And I haven't got much compared to some people because I don't have
mm,
much outboard gear, but um, the gear. One thing I love, and it is a little expensive, is I do have a weighted piano keyboard. It's a controller keyboard,
yeah, I like
but
it.
it's an 88 key weighted keyboard one, an old Yamaha one. It's not a new model, but that's really really handy. I always had 48 key keyboards and things like that before, and
Yeah.
I always found I was running out of space for the sort of things I wanted to do, particularly with virtual instruments where you get a lot of key switches and things which are down the other end of the keyboard. So yeah, that's a nice thing to have. I have a Presonus 192 interface, which is something like 32 inputs, I think, something crazy like that,
Mm,
which is not real because it's only got sort of like 8 actually what we think of as inputs.
yeah.
The rest of it is like ADAT and SPDIF. Is that how you
Mm,
say it? I'm never quite sure.
no,
Uh, and
no.
all that sort of stuff. But that's a bit of a luxury. That was a luxury item for me. What else? I have a little old two input, another audio interface which I use as well, a Roland one.
Mm,
Probably the thing that people might notice on my desk is a Mackie controller. It kind of looks like a mixer, but it's
mm,
not a mixer. It's a controller,
yeah.
and that is one of the more expensive things that I've got in here, and it's a complete luxury. You don't need it whatsoever. It doesn't make anything sound better on your recordings. It doesn't make
Mm,
you sound better, but it does make mixing a little bit more sort of organic and pleasurable. You can do it, of course, with your mouse on the screen. It's fine. But when you're doing a lot of it, I suppose it's like anything else. When you start to do a lot of it and you're doing it all the time, you get little luxuries which kind of oil the cogs as you're working, but most of it's unnecessary. And I'll hopefully be doing. I'm hoping to do a video soon about what I think you need as the most basic setup, which is small interface microphone, perhaps a pair of headphones. Um, but yeah, don't look. I don't mind. Treat yourself.
yeah.
If you're doing a lot of it, there's nothing wrong with it. But yeah, that's that, and I'll
Uh,
probably spend more money than I should do on my computer and things like that.
you have a very cool computer. My computer's like
Mm,
circa 2008 or something at this stage. But yes, and you're right. Like you don't need this. And people that watch my channel, watch your channel, they know that we
mm.
say this all the time, which is that you create with what you've got, and it's more about the performance, the song, the recording, how you're actually doing, how you're getting it in there. The gear is definitely secondary, and
And I'm
don't.
going to tell you something honestly now, at the risk of ruining whatever reputation I may or may not have. You may have seen this fellow on YouTube, and he compares microphones. I don't know his name, sorry. So he'll get different microphones. He's always got the same setting. He always does the same test. He's great. He's really, really good. Very knowledgeable about microphones. And he did a test the other day, and it was I think there's a Neumann microphone, and if I remember correctly, I might get this wrong. It's a something 103. Tell me in the comments if you know. Maybe TLM 103. I think probably around about $1,500 to $2,000 microphone in Australian dollars. Anyway, and there was a Chinese knockoff of it for about $20 off of Wish or something, and they'd even used the same model number. And he compared them, which is a completely unfair test. And he was really knocking this cheap mic. He was saying it's just garbage. Da-da-da. I
Mhm.
have to say, I watched that video 3 times. I couldn't hear much of a difference between the 2 microphones. Now, that could be because ultimately there's not much difference, and we all get tricked into thinking there is by the price tag and the name and the reputation. Or it could mean that I've got rotten hearing and I've got no business making videos about audio production whatsoever. Scary
We
thought for me.
we'll go with the former because we don't want we want people to continue watching your videos. But it's yeah, I've seen similar videos, and I must admit I've had the same thoughts. And yes, you can say, there's the YouTube compression, there's all the other things that would factor into it. But the bottom line is that people don't listen to a music and go, "Oh, I bet that they were using a Neumann microphone. I bet that they were using a whatever interface. I bet they recorded that in Pro Tools." They go,
Hmm.
"That's a cool song. It sounds good. I like it." So
Yep.
really only those of us who sort of get into the whole nitty-gritty of music and recording that actually get hung up on that stuff. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
and brings to another good topic. This is a bit topical actually, because there's been a lot of discussion in our community over
Mhm.
the last couple of weeks about Billie Eilish. Hopefully,
Mhm.
people are very familiar.
Yeah.
Um, my daughter's a massive fan, so I've been very exposed to Billie Eilish over the last probably close to a year, I suppose, whatever, since it's been out, her album.
Mm.
And so there's a lot of talk about the fact that she recorded it in her parents' bedroom,
Mm.
or so the legend goes.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, what I think about it is, don't think just because you record it in your bedroom that you're going to create a Grammy award winning album, right? It's actually kind of irrelevant whether it's the bedroom or the studio. The fact is that she's innovative, very, very innovative. She
Mm.
does things in terms of sounds, and production ideas that I wouldn't dream of. It's not in my imagination. I'm not that imaginative, to be honest with you. So all credit to people. I love it. I love it. I love the hearing the surprises in the music. I go, oh, I didn't quite expect that to happen. So it's really about talent, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. Talent, experimentation, doing your thing, and just practicing. Like, you got the thing is, like, I'm sure, I know Billie Eilish is super young and she's super talented. I'm sure it's not the
Mm,
first time she's ever like sung something or recorded something. She was probably like 9-year-old Mike, recording into I don't know, probably her iPhone, because they would have
yeah,
been
yeah,
around at the time,
yep, yep,
and
yep.
actually recording her sounds and learning what works, what doesn't work, and just trying things out. So the more you do, the better you're going to get, which is the best segue that I've ever had in any Creator Series interview ever,
Mm.
to what's going on with you at the moment. We will finish off with my final 2 questions, which I know you're looking forward to.
All right. Okay. Yeah.
Before we jump over to those, I believe that you have I've got to get this right, a free 15-part series all about exactly what we've been talking about here, about how to record and mix and then release a song. Am
Mm.
I correct? Is
You
this right?
are.
Yes.
I had this silly idea to do this, and you knew all about it because I told you all about it at the time. And this is going back to August. It's going back to August. And I thought my thing is that I'm the kind of guy that if someone's going to teach me something, it's good. I know I've got to learn all the steps, but I also like to know kind of an overview. How's it going to
Mm,
really go? How do I get from beginning to end? So I get an idea of what I'm in for, right? And then I can just follow the pathway through. And to my surprise, that over the last 10 or 15 years of people like us making videos on YouTube, there wasn't that much where it documented a song from beginning to end. It is there,
mm,
but again, we try and fill those gaps where we think, well, it's been said, but maybe it could be said in a better way. So I did find some videos where people tried to do it all in one video. So they just tried to do the whole process in a 1 hour video or something like that. And I saw some other examples which are a little bit old. And also I noticed that they didn't take you all the way through to something which you are very hot on, I know, to the actual release, to
mm,
not just
mhm,
recording it, but actually getting it out there to the world. So I thought, oh, well, I'd like to make a series which documents. And I thought at first, I think I thought it was going to be like an 8-part series, and then I thought, oh, so I need to add that bit. I need to do an episode on this. So it ended up being 15 episodes, and it does document the whole process from me starting off with a completely blank DAW cakewalk in this case, all the
mm,
way through from tracking or planning, tracking, the several stages of mixing, the mixing process, then some stuff on mastering, and then actually releasing it as well. So
Mhm.
that's what took up the 15 episodes, and it took up 3.5 months of my life to film one. And it's funny because normally a song actually, uh, I guess I could probably record, mix and master and release a song in a week or two, often if I've got a bit of free time, to do that.
Mm, mm.
But this just, when you start to do the process, but you put a camera on yourself doing it, and then you've got to explain what you're doing, it grows and grows and grows. So yeah, it's taken up a huge part of my life. So this week it comes out on Tuesday, the first episode. I decided to film the whole thing before I release it, and
Mhm.
the first one comes out on Tuesday, and then I'm releasing an episode every 2 days, which so it takes up the whole of February and a
Yeah.
little bit into March. And I'm doing 3 live shows, roughly every 5 episodes, so that people can ask me about the information that I've given them so far. And yeah, um, that's what that project has been about, and I'm really, really excited and relieved because that's what it feels like when you actually release something, you know?
Well, that yeah, and you're right, and it is so cool, and to the points you made there, I've seen similar videos. I've seen the hole-in-one thing. I've done sort of a live daily kind of vlog style of releasing a song, but yeah, it's not quite the same sort of thing because yeah, like you say, there's a lot of detail, and it does take like I found it took longer than a month to do a month's worth of videoing and
Yep,
creating it. I was rushing at the end, so
yep.
knowing the work you've put into this and knowing the quality that we're going to see here, no pressure or anything, but this is going to be the most phenomenal thing that anyone has ever seen before. Where can folks go to find this? To
So
get hold
if you
of
go
it?
to my channel, which of course, you being a good host, you're going to put the link in the description.
Of
If you
course.
go to my channel, the latest video on there is a little trailer which I made, which I put out on Tuesday this week, and I run through a few of the episodes and what it's all about there. That will give you all the information you need, and I've got a link there where I've got a schedule of release and a little bit of information about each episode. And yeah, I did consider doing the vlog style thing, but
Mm,
it's just not quite my style. And I wanted to do something a little bit more polished.
yeah.
And for me, that meant really planning it out like you would a TV show. Just
We
the whole thing was planned out. I actually did like open a Word document, and I went through and I went, episode one's going to be this. Da, 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 da. So it wasn't much done on the fly, but of course, like some of the recording processes, you do plan as you may plan a song out. But of course, then as things occurred to me with the actual song itself, I thought, oh, I actually want to try this, add this instrument in, or add that. It wasn't too much of that. Um, I will say that, of course, there's no real one way of recording a song.
mm,
So
yeah.
if you got to the end of this series and you thought, or maybe you're experienced and you watch this series and you thought, I don't think I like the way he's doing it there. That's absolutely fine. This is I had a phrase for this. This is descriptive, not prescriptive. This
Ooh,
describes my process, but it does not really prescribe to you that you should follow this process. It may give you some ideas. And if you've never recorded a song before, you've only done one or two, then you
mm,
might pick up quite a few little tips and things which help you to move through the process a bit better. But yeah,
love
don't think this is the only way to record a song because it definitely isn't. There's heaps of
Yep.
different ways to do it.
100%. Yeah,
Mm,
I agree with that wholeheartedly. But and I've always said this that when you're doing these sort of things and when you're watching tutorials and you're seeing what people do, what I hate is definitive statements, which is when
mm,
someone says, "This is how you record an acoustic guitar.
mm,
This is
mm,
how you mix a song,"
mm,
because there is no one way, and there is the way that that person chooses to. And what I try to do, it don't always work. Sometimes I probably do make definitive statements, but I like to try and say, this is my way of doing it. This is what's worked for me. And the
mm.
beauty part of that, Mike, is that if it doesn't work for them, you are completely off the hook because you can just say, well, that worked for me. If it didn't work for you, what can I tell you? You
It's
probably
true,
just didn't
it's
do
true.
it the way that I did it, and you need to try something else. So it does. It gives you a get
I
out of jail.
mean, in one of the episodes, and this is probably gonna be the least popular episode, I'm guessing, Oh, you can have a guess, but I decided in this particular song that I wanted a cajon in it. Now I do have some virtual drums in it a bit later, but it starts off with a cajon as the instrument, and this
Mm,
is what came up because I've recorded cajon a fair amount in the past, and there's this kind of some established ways of doing it. Normally, it's recommended, you'll be on a hard floor, on a
mm,
hard floor with a rug, and so on and so forth. But with this particular song, I didn't want the typical sound that you have. I didn't want it to be very lively. So most people go, "Oh, to make it sound lively, you need to be in a room with a hard floor and da da da." And I was thinking, no, I don't want that. I want a dead sound. I want it to sound like a toy drum kind of thing.
yeah,
I didn't want it to sound sophisticated. So it meant that I had to approach this for this song in a way that I wouldn't do perhaps for other songs. And that's really a little bit of the art of recording is trying to
mm,
figure out what do I want and then figuring out how to get there. Um, and I sort of felt like I wanted to show my thought process more so. I mean, people may hate the outcome. They might think, "Geez, that cajon sounds awful," but it's the thought process which counts. That's a new phrase there, isn't it? It's the thought process
you're
which
coming up with nuggets of gold here today, I've got to say. The thought process is it's the thought that counts. I think my mum told me that one. The thought that counts. But yes, and again, again, it's a get out of jail free card because if your cajon sounds terrible, then you're all good. By the way, cajon, what box you sit on and whack and makes a drum type sound for those that are
Yes, that's right. Yes, for those of you who don't know. Yep. Yep.
yes. We're already over time, which I knew would happen, but I'm
Mm,
blaming myself.
mm.
I've got a couple more questions here, and then we will finish off the official show here. So there's two questions I like to ask at the end here.
Mm.
The first one here is what is the proudest moment that you've had since you've started creating music? So back in the 60s when you were creating music, what's been the proudest moment throughout that whole time of your music creation, or is it gonna be this series? Is the best yet to come?
It's an easy answer, but I'm afraid it's not very light-hearted at all, at all.
Right.
Um, so it's a little bit somber this, but it was just yeah, I felt proud about this.
Mm,
Um, I worked with a guy several years ago in a software development team. He lived over here in Perth. He moved back to Queensland, and cut long story short, he contacted me one day because his nephew had died. He was 12 years old and he died in a storm drain. We get this sometimes in Australia.
mm,
Kids will be playing in a storm drain
yeah,
and terrible things happen. So it was
mm,
really sad, really, really sad situation. And he said that he said he'd written some words for a song. And he sort of said to me, "Look, I remember you used to be pretty handy with music and recording and stuff. Could you put some music to these words and then could you record it and get it back to me as soon as possible so that we could play it at the funeral?" And that's what happened. That recording was just made for that particular funeral. Came out really well. Once in a while, I'll hear from him, and I know that his sister uh, found that song really precious to her, and it was meaningful. So yeah, that was something that just you know whenever something like that happens for you in your music life, it
mm,
feels you feel very, very privileged to be allowed to enter into that moment and find some way to speak through music. And it's very, very difficult. It's very, very difficult. So
yeah. No,
took
yeah,
yeah, took a little
100%.
bit of reaching inside and just trying to be as authentic as possible. I remember, yeah.
Yeah,
Mm, mm,
and it's I was gonna say it's unfortunately common, but I think it's
mm,
actually not that it's a good thing by any stretch, but it's a positive thing that music can definitely be a healer, and
mm.
it is great when you're feeling good. It is great to have great music when you're feeling happy and when you're feeling good, but it's also can be a very healing influence when you are in the worst possible times. And,
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
those are those situations where you need music, and a lot of people get comfort in music. So it's pretty good that you were able to create and help in that particular
Yeah, I
situation.
mean, to be honest, I'd written a song for myself because I'd actually lost a child myself several years before, and so it was a similar process really for me. It was about, how do you address this subject in as authentic way as possible? You're not gonna if you're feeling it at all, there's not gonna be any cheese involved. It's not gonna be cheesy whatsoever. It's not gonna be nice necessarily either.
Mm,
People's emotions at difficult times in their lives are not always nice or pleasant or easy to listen to. But yeah, so that's one type of songwriting. And for people who are songwriting, I say sometimes, at least try sometimes to reach somewhere that's not to make you look cool or amazing or anything, but just somewhere very, very authentic about the human experience which happens, and try and write about that. It's a challenge, but
mm.
worth it often. Mm.
I agree. Yes,
Mm.
and yeah, and it is. Like I say, it's not. It's never a great thing to do, but again, it can help you work through things. And yeah,
Mm.
music
It was a
is
privilege. Yep.
yeah. I can 100%. I can
And
100%.
can I tell you one other story? Because I was proud about this. This is it's similar story, but I shouldn't be laughing, I know. But I used to play in this bar in Fremantle many, many years ago, and there was an old fella in there, and he'd collect his pension. His name was Ray. He would collect his pension on a Saturday, and he'd go and buy lots and lots of bunches of flowers, and he'd come in this bar, and he'd just go up to all the ladies in there, and he'd give them all flowers, right? So I was writing a lot of songs at that time, and I put him in the song. I put him in one of these songs, and that I think I said something along the lines of, when I grow up, I want to be like him, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I put him in there, and he was an elderly fella anyway. And eventually he did pass, and his sons contacted me, and they said, "Our dad always loved the fact that you sang about him in your song.
Mm,
And would you come along to the funeral?" And I said, "Oh, of course." Came along, went to the funeral, the lovely ceremony. I didn't know anyone there. I didn't, obviously I didn't know the family or anything like that. So again, you feel a little bit privileged and a little bit awkward to be there. And the
mm.
service finished, and then through the PA system came my song, because I'd put it on an album at the time.
Oh,
And that was, again, what a great privilege to be there. It was a much happier occasion in a sense, it was to celebrate an old fella's life and his character. But yeah, what a privilege to be there in that situation. So yeah, that was
but clearly there's a part two in here because
sorry about that, guys. Taking up all this
we've
time.
got a lot of other stories to tell. We will cover. We'll get back into the routine and do some more to more live
Mm,
shows in 2020. I'm sure, so that
yes, we will.
we can
We
shoot the
shall.
breeze and do more of this. And as you continue on with your series as well, I'll be
Mm.
there. I'll be there. I'll be in. I'll be in the audience heckling you in your live, asking you all the tricky questions. And I do encourage folks to do the same. I usually finish off by asking this question: if you could go back in time and give young Mike advice about music creation and your journey, or for someone who is just starting out and they're nervous because they think their music sucks or they can't
Mm,
create or they're not doing it,
mm.
what's the one big piece of advice that you would pass on and say, here's what you need to do to get over the line?
Don't worry so much about what people think of you. Simple. That's it. You know,
Mm,
a lot of people would give you the same advice, but I wasted many, many years trying to impress other people, playing music that I thought they wanted to hear, or trying to satisfy as much of the crowd as I could. And just don't do it. Just be authentic in what you do with your music. The crowd who like you will find you, and there might be a smaller crowd, but they'll love you 10 times as much. Don't Yeah, yeah. Don't be too mediocre if you can help it. Just do what's
yeah.
in your heart. Yeah.
Too true,
Mm.
too true. Great advice. Yeah, and definitely don't. Yeah, I couldn't say any better than myself. Better than myself, which is why I'm stumbling over my words here. So, Reba that's all, folks. Yeah. So please do, before I spit all over the screen here, please
Mm.
do jump over to Creative Source. Check out Mike's channel. Subscribe if you haven't already. Although I've got a funny feeling that most people here on this channel already know about you and already are subscribers and are looking
Cool.
forward to this series as I am. I want to hear this song. Like now I know it's got cajon in there. I am all in. I love me some cajon. So yes, definitely jump over, check that one out. Any
Well, the
parting words?
song is an interesting one. Just can
Oh,
I tell you a little? So the song
I've given my disease now. That's great.
was written at a time when I was going through a little bit of a crisis, I suppose, or a little bit post-crisis, and I was finding a little bit of healing. But I talk about a guy in the song, an old fella, different old fella. I talk
Mm.
about an old fella in the song who I meet, and I have this conversation with him, right? And then after I'd written the song, I met him and I had the conversation. Just a little bit, do, 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 but it's true. That's
Ooh.
the story of that song. So if you think
I
there's any destiny in the universe, then yeah,
I
that's
so
how I
thought
felt.
that was gonna be, and then the man was me 30 years into
No, no.
Twilight Zone, and then I had a dream, and I had the conversation, and it was actually old Mike. That would be thank you. Thank you for being here and, being on the
Mm,
Creators Series today. I know it's been a little
my
bit of a
absolute
lengthy
pleasure.
interview, but, yeah, it's always great to have a chat and a yarn. Once again, head over to Creative Source. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you liked this chat, then hit the like button. That makes me and Mike feel really warm right down in our
Mm,
coffee. So,
warm inside you.
right, exactly, and I'll put yours on here. If you don't like it, hit the dislike button twice. On that note, we're going to finish up here. Thanks for watching, folks. We'll see you next time. Cheers.